Welcome once again to Real Shame. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And it's a twice, sometimes more a week show where we review movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spots. Since December is upon us and it's that season, we have a couple of Christmas or holiday themed movies for you. But before we get into that, we always like to talk about what we've been watching. So, Andy, what have you been watching?
All right, so finishing up a Thanksgiving roundup of movies, because actually as we're filming this, we're not too far past Thanksgiving. I watched several movies that I've seen before. I think the only movie that I watched this Thanksgiving that was a Thanksgiving movie that I had not seen before was Dutch. So all these movies I've already seen before. One is Pieces of April, which is like an early 2000s movie with Katie Holmes and Oliver Platt. The Ice Storm, Ang Lee's The Ice Storm, which is a depressing Thanksgiving movie. And again, I'd say Thanksgiving. They take place at Thanksgiving, but it's not like they're necessarily sitting down to eat a Thanksgiving dinner in any of these movies. Some of them are, some of them they're not. But Ice Storm with Sigourney Weaver, Kevin Kline, Tobey Maguire, also with Katie Holmes. The House of Yes with Parker Posey and Josh Hamilton and Freddie Prinze Jr., and then Blood Rage, actually...
Is that a Thanksgiving movie?
Blood Rage does take place at Thanksgiving. I forgot. I had not seen Blood Rage either. It's a horror movie that takes place at Thanksgiving. Incredibly low budget and incredibly crappy, but fun to laugh at.
All right.
Home for the Holidays with Holly Hunter. That's actually one that I try and watch every single Thanksgiving. I like that movie. Directed by Jodie Foster. Her second directorial outing after Little Man Tate. And then finally, because on today's episode, we're going to talk about a Christmas movie that was shot in Canada. It's a Canadian movie. I watched a different Canadian movie, not a Christmas movie, with Elliot Gould, Christopher Plummer, Susanna York, and a small role for John Candy. It's a late 70s movie called The Silent Partner, which I thought was good. It was a nice little Canadian thriller, like a bank robbery kind of movie.
I've heard of two of those movies that you've talked about.
Which two?
Pieces of April. I remember like Katie Holmes having like really dark eyeliner in that movie, or at least on the box art.
Yep, she does.
And The Ice Storm.
Okay.
So only Katie Holmes movies. Those are
only the Katie Holmes movies.
That's crazy.
I did not watch Dawson's Creek though. Sorry.
Sacrilege. I guess we have maybe some more movies to watch next Thanksgiving, or at least for me, at least.
Yeah, I think Home for the Holidays would work.
All right.
I like that movie. So what have you been watching?
So I don't remember how long ago it was because this everything blurs together these days.
Mixed up here.
But I mentioned that I watched The Queen's Gambit and I really liked it. And guess what? I watched it again.
You liked it so much you watched it again.
This time with Kirby. We watched it in a weekend, I think. Watched it pretty quick. It went pretty fast. Watched it again. Still as good as I like it, as I thought it was initially. It held up. It was really awesome. After that, we were looking for another TV show to kind of watch, and we decided to dive into The Crown, which is another one of Netflix's TV shows. This one's about the monarchy in England. Mm-hmm. And we've watched the first season and some change of it. And it's good. I don't think I like it as much as most of the critics I see like it and stuff. It feels very formulaic to me each episode a little bit because, and I kind of break this down for Kirby each time, it always feels like the queen agrees to do something and then her regents or her people that kind of, her courtiers, I think is what they call them, come up to her and say, you can't do that, it's going to spoil the monarchy, it's going to ruin it, it's going to ruin the head of the church, it's not going to work, and then she has to walk that back, and it's just like, it feels like that is the premise and the main conflict of every episode, and I'm just kind of like, okay. After like, a bunch of episodes, it just feels very old at this point.
I haven't watched it, but I guess they have like a new season that came out or something like that.
Yeah, they have season 4 just came out.
Backlash that it should be labeled as fiction, and all these people are kind of mad about it, but you haven't gotten that far, so you can't really say.
So what happens is the first 2 seasons are pretty close together. They're right around World War II when Queen Elizabeth takes over. Queen Elizabeth II, I think, takes over the throne. And then the next season 3, they jump forward a bunch of years, and they have a different actress, Olivia Colman takes over from Claire Foy, sorry. I was close.
I've not even watched the show. I know all the actors.
You actors better than me. And then this season they jumped ahead again. So that's kind of what I understand. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just that whole conflict just feels old to me. So
in the new season, Queen Elizabeth is played by John Travolta. Is that right? No. Oh, I'm thinking Edna Turnblatt from Hairspray. I think. Sorry, my bad.
And then to finish up, something else I've been watching. I watched the final season of Justified, or I finished Justified. I don't know where I said I left off last time, but I've watched all of it again and finished it, and it was good. I like the latter two seasons more this time around than I did the first time when I watched them when they're airing. So
you felt justified in watching Justified again.
I did.
All right.
So that is what I've been watching. So let's get into our featured review.
All righty.
What are we reviewing?
Okay. Hello? 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 Hey, quiet! It's him again! The Mona!
So the
What are we talking about?
The women of Pi Kappa Sigma are being picked off one by a deranged killer who has been terrorizing them with some mighty obscene phone calls in Black Christmas from 1974. So this is a movie that I've seen a couple of times, I think now. It's probably my third time or so to see it. You've never seen it before.
Never seen. I don't think I've ever.
You never heard of it?
I don't think I've heard of it. Did they do like a Black Christmas kind of parody in between the Grindhouse movies?
Maybe. I can't remember.
Maybe.
I know that. I think that they did all kinds of stuff, but I don't remember.
And they've remade it, right? Or
it has 2 remakes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think I didn't know much about the movie. If I might have heard the title, but I didn't know much about it going into it.
All right. Well, before we get your thoughts on it, I'll just say a little bit about the movie. The production itself was directed by a guy named Bob Clark. He was no stranger to horror films prior. He had done some horror films prior to Black Christmas. He did a movie called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things and another movie called Death Dream, which is kind of a riff on W.W. Jacobs' The Monkey's Paw. The movie itself is kind of inspired from the urban legend, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs, which that would kind of literally almost be made in the movie When a Stranger Calls with Carol Kane in the late 1970s. But, that sort of theme or whatever, that urban legend kind of crops up in a lot of different movies, but this is kind of inspired by that. Also, when I think of Black Christmas, I'm reminded of serial killers like Ted Bundy because he attacked some women in a sorority house. I'm reminded of Richard Speck. He killed 8 nurses in one night, like in a dormitory. It wasn't exactly a sorority house. And then also I was thinking when I was watching this of an Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode called An Unlocked Window because, as we'll talk about, the killer gets in through the window.
Yeah.
And also An Unlocked Window is another kind of killer nurse kind of, or it's a nurse that kills somebody. The episode aired after Richard Speck killed the nurses that he killed. So it wasn't really inspired by it, but the cast includes Olivia Hussey. She was probably best known at this point for playing Juliet in Romeo and Juliet from the late 1960s, Franco Zeffirelli. Keir Dullea, which I've always thought was such an interesting name. Keir Dullea, Gone Tomorrow. Keir Dullea, who was best known as Dave from 2001. He's the guy that shuts down the HAL 9000 in 2001, A Space Odyssey. Margot Kidder, pre-Lois Lane, pre-Superman Margot Kidder, but post Brian De Palma's Sisters, which is another kind of horror film where she plays twin sisters, one's homicidal and one is not. She made this movie after Sisters. Andrea Martin plays the not the house mother. Getting ahead of myself. She plays the house mother in the remake. Andrea Martin in this plays just another one of the sorority girls. She would go on to do a bunch of SCTV stuff. She's a cast member of SCTV. Doug McGrath plays the cop Nash, who's kind of an idiot in the movie. And the only reason I mention him is because he is in probably the quintessential Canadian film of the 1970s, Going Down the Road. I have to say it like that. Going down the road. And I mentioned that because that was actually parodied in SCTV, and Andrea Martin was in that sketch. The parody sketch was called Garth and Ford and Fiona and Alice. And it also had John Candy Yeah. So we got a lot of SCTV connections.
Monkeys, Ted
Yeah, a lot of connections here.
And also the title, right? It's probably from
Right. Monkeys, Fiona and Alice.
Yeah.
Monkeys, Ted and Alice. Finally, rounding out the cast, we have the late great John Saxon.
John Saxon.
Yes, R.I.P. John Saxon. But
From what movie we watched? Battle Beyond the Stars.
Sador in Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars' own John Saxon.
Yes. So now that I have gone through the cast and sort of a little bit about the or the director anyway, and it is Canadian, proudly Canadian production. Actually, I read that, interestingly enough, it came out, so October the 11th, 1974 was the release date of Black Christmas in Canada, but it's also the same release date for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, interesting.
Down here in the States. The Black Christmas wasn't released in the United States until December, which probably makes more sense. But it was released around right before Halloween in Canada, before it made it down here. Okay, anyway, so what did you think about Black Christmas? And what did you think, Kirby?
Yeah, Kirby's here because she's... it's an interesting movie. I think I'm of two minds with Black Christmas because there's some aspects of this movie that I thought was really cool. Like some of the imagery and some of the stuff that happens in it, like the kills and stuff like that, I think are really cool and really interesting. And I like the premise of it, and I like kind of like the, there's that 70s flavor to it that's kind of kitschy now, but that's kind of fun. But there's like probably half the movie is just slow. So it just feels like you get this kind of exciting part or you get this interesting part, and then it just kind of goes into this lull and it's kind of languid until this next part comes up and it's really exciting. So I think overall I like it. I just wish it was tighter, and I wish there's more going on because the lulls I feel like kind of took a lot away from it.
Yeah.
The movie started with a bang. Those prank calls were nuts.
Yeah, those prank calls were pretty.
Like graphic.
I think they're hilarious.
It's just I wasn't expecting that.
I'm sure to the women in the movie it wasn't nice, and I heard that they recorded what he said in post. Like it wasn't what they were saying on the phone, but it's just funny. It's just funny hearing that stuff.
I think if you like screaming, "Girl, run out the front door! Don't do I mean, there was a lot of that, but I liked it. I thought it was. I was very entertained by the fact that the policeman was able to get how quickly they were able to get a trace on that line.
Yeah.
And it was more just it was funny how fast things happened. Like the dad was concerned when she was 10 minutes late. Like if that happened to me, like Adam would be filing police reports every other day.
Yeah.
So he was like, it's 10 after 1. She was supposed to meet me at 1. It's like, oh.
And then he kind of just like loses that thread because he's just like hanging out the house and stuff like that.
Like, what is he?
So it's just there's some interesting stuff like that, and I feel like that kind of stuff doesn't hold up as well, and maybe that was more of the times and stuff like that. And then the whole time I think they're trying to make you believe that one of the characters is the killer.
Yeah.
Because like he's wearing the same outfit, and you're just getting like he's wearing similar colors, and you're getting shots like that to make it think it's him, and then. I do think it's interesting that they really don't resolve it at the end, right?
Right, yeah.
You don't know who the killer is.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
The house lady, she just had booze hitting all over the place. Yeah. We were like...
In the toilet tank, yeah.
No, she had booze hidden books in the toilet tank. Yeah. Miss Mac was hilarious. I thought she was awesome.
Yeah.
But let's kick it over to you real quick before we jump into too many details about the movie. What are your thoughts on Black Christmas? Like, what are your overall opinions on it and stuff?
I really like this movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I've seen it, like I said, I think a couple of times before. I really, really liked it a lot when I first saw it. And I like it a lot now. I don't know if I'm as crazy about it as I was when I first saw it, but I still think it's a really good movie. I think the first, I kind of agree with what you said. I mean, I think the first kind of part of it is slow, is kind of clunky. I don't really like Miss Mac. I mean, I think it's funny that she hides booze in a book and in the toilet tank, but I feel like the scenes with her, like that, she's supposed to be kind of the comic relief, and for me, it just falls painfully flat. I think all of the scenes with her, like I can't wait for her to die, because I feel like once she dies, the rest of the movie really picks up.
Is it like Texas Chainsaw where
it starts kind of like she's Franklin? Yeah, she's kind of the Franklin of this movie. But yeah, once she's kind of gets dispatched. The rest of the movie I feel like is a lot better. It's not nearly as clunky. I feel like it gets a little more exciting. The scenes with her, the scenes with Claire's father, who you mentioned, saying like, oh, she's late or whatever. They don't do anything for me. There's a lot of scenes where they're just kind of, she's trying to hide, dirty posters in, his daughter's room or whatever, which, I mean, I get the humor. I'm not stupid. I get the humor. It's just not all that funny to me.
Yeah.
And they seem to just kind of stare at each other a lot, and he's kind of like looking disapprovingly. But some of that stuff just goes on way too long for me. And I'm like, hurry up and get to the next kill, like, which is what you said. Also, the first kind of introductory scenes between Keir Dullea and Olivia Hussey, who are like boyfriend and girlfriend, those are kind of clunky to me. They're trying to establish he's a little bit, he's got a temper and he's kind of weird because, as you said, they want you to believe that he's the killer.
And I didn't like the Claire Dullea stuff where he's like practicing the piano or he's giving that. I guess he's a piano performance major because he's like performing
at
a
music
piece.
conservatory, right?
Yeah, I didn't like any of his stuff, and actually, I didn't like Margot Robbie that much. Not Margot Robbie. I like Margot Robbie. I didn't like Margot Kidder that much in this movie.
Barb.
I like Barb.
Well, I mean, she's just like
she's foul mouthed and drunk
all the whole time.
It just seems like not real. I don't know.
It just seemed like a caricature because it was like she was drunk and inappropriate the whole time, and then it's like, but then it was strange because then like right before a pivotal scene with her, she's like got asthma. You're like, oh, okay, that's like
it does kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, because it's also like they're like, oh, that's Barb. She's up there. She's hungover.
I'm gonna.
It was just a bit weird.
I'm kind of foreshadowing some stuff we're gonna talk about in the next week or so, but there is like a little bit of like uncanny valley with the way Margot Kidder plays her character. So for me, Miss Mac is completely in the caricature, over the top kind of thing. And I feel like Margot Kidder just a little dips her toes in that too much. And for me, that's more off-putting than having a character that's fully in it. So like her stuff is just so heightened that it just doesn't fit in with all the other girls. I don't know. It just didn't work. It didn't sit with me. But I can kind of,
Well, once the house mother gets killed, I feel like the movie really settles in, and for the rest of the movie, I feel like it's really good and somewhat exciting. Not as fast paced as a thriller nowadays or a horror movie nowadays, but that's fine. I don't expect that it was made in the 1970s. It was a different time, but this movie is kind of a trendsetter as far as being in the slasher. I'm thinking things that start with S. Slasher genre, not serial killer genre.
Slapping
Slasher genre. Although this guy does kill, I think, enough people to be considered a serial killer. But yeah, it's kind of a trendsetter as far as like the POV shots and things of that nature. I think the phone calls are creepy. I mean, you can laugh at them or whatever, but they're just bizarre. This guy's just completely unhinged and is talking in a high pitch and then a low and then a moan and then he's just, the audio is just so weird.
It is.
It's really strange.
Yeah.
But part of me kind of took a step out of the movie a bit, and like how loud he is on the phone, if it was coming from the house, you would kind of hear it, right? I think you would hear someone. Like, if someone was in the other room screaming like that, I think you would be able to hear it through the walls. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're overthinking.
Maybe. Yeah, probably.
But
was every call from the house?
Yeah.
Because we see him break in kind of at the beginning.
Yeah, he's the man upstairs. And they've
been getting that call for a while, right? So, assuming it's... He probably called maybe...
Oh, yeah, before that. Because at the beginning of the movie is when you see him actually like climbing the window.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it... And I guess... Presumably, he dispatched the dead girl that they find in the park on his way there.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, I think you're kind of led to believe that. I don't know who else it would be.
Because it seemed like it was really close by, because when those two guys came to the door, it was like right there. But I think like that first girl he kills in the house, like that is, like with her being like the plastic bag being in the rocking chair. I mean, that is like excellent horror filmmaking. Like that is horrifying. It is jarring. It looks cool. Like that's probably my favorite kind of, like, that's what this movie does best, is, like, shots like that look really haunting and really disturbing and stuff like that.
Well, it's very macabre because she sits there the entire film in the attic and no one is the wiser, and the movie ends with her still there in the rocking chair.
Well, like, it was kind of strange. There was the, like, when they cut to, I guess they're, like, one of the guys from the earlier scene is, like, Santa Claus. and like he's just swearing while the kids are there. Like it just seemed like it was such a strange. Like, 'cause I was like, oh, is he gonna come back in the picture? No, he doesn't. Like, I mean, you know, so it was just funny. But I mean, I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
I like that it doesn't reveal all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you don't have like a, it doesn't wrap up the killer or anything like that. It just kind of goes on.
No, and and the fact that it ends, Claire's dead body is still in the rocking chair, and then the phone's just ringing there at the end. It's just kind of ominous, and because that Olivia Hussey is there like sedated, asleep in bed, and the killer's still there.
Yeah,
but I think I called it when the policeman disregarded the phone stuff.
Oh yeah, that was coming from the house.
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, there's a second line." He's like, "That's not." He's because they're like, "Okay, great," and then we have another line. He's like, "Oh, that's not a big deal."
Yeah.
I was like, it was either he did it or it's something.
Not John Saxon, no.
Oh, he's so great.
I think being in 2020, you're kind of ahead of the movie in that aspect because you kind of have heard of that. You've seen movies that kind of have that, and you've kind of heard of that urban legend and stuff like that. So there's a couple times where we're probably a little bit ahead of the movie than the audiences that watched it in '74 were and stuff like that.
Right. I think Olivia Hussey makes a good. I think she gives a really good performance, and I think she's a good final girl in the movie. I like her a lot. She never really went on to have like a massive career. She is in the Stephen King It miniseries that was made for TV back in the 1990s. She is in that. In the second part, when it's all the adults.
When they're adults, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you read? Because after we watched it, I went and I looked at like who the character name that is in the remakes, like more about the killer, because I guess they like reveal it in the other ones, and it's just insane.
So we can lead right into the fact that I watched the remakes. I didn't mention that.
Segue, I didn't even know.
I didn't mention that at the top of the show because I didn't want to get ahead of what we were actually reviewing. But I watched both of the remakes after I watched this version. I've seen the 2006 remake before, so this is my second time watching it. But the 2019 one, it's on HBO Max at least right now.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I wouldn't watch it if I were you. The 2019 one, I'd heard nothing but bad things about, and I heard that they shouldn't have called it Black Christmas because it really has very little to do. The 2006 one is kind of similar to the 1974 one, but yes, I don't want to spoil it since we're not reviewing that movie, but there is some complexities as far as the killer, and there is a backstory and all that stuff. And I think that it sucks. I mean, I don't like that part of it.
Rob Zombie Halloween.
They did, and I hate that. Yeah. So the first time I saw the 2006 remake, I couldn't stand it. I actually kind of liked it better this time. I think time has kind of softened my ire for it. They ratchet up the gore big time. But it has like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and when I saw it back in 2006, I had no idea who she was.
Yeah.
Because I guess she'd done like Final Destination 3 and who knows what else. But I didn't know who she was. Obviously, she's gone on to be a much bigger star. It has Michelle Trachtenberg, Andrea Martin, who plays Phil in the 1974 version. She's the house mother, Mrs. Mack, in the 2006 version. She's the only person who is from the original cast that's in the 2006. Katie Cassidy is in it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who she was back when I saw it.
She was in the Melrose Place reboot.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, she plays Black Canary in the Arrowverse.
Yes.
Which Black Canary?
The second one, whatever.
Okay.
The sister.
There's
doesn't die.
She's David Cassidy's daughter.
She's David Cassidy's daughter, yes. But she's in it. Lacey Chabert is in it, and I don't know. There's probably somebody else that I'm forgetting. But the 2006 one, again, not great, but I don't think it's terrible. The 2019 one is terrible, and I had heard it was terrible, and it's actually already in the top 100 worst movies on IMDb. It's like 3.3 out of 10.
And it's only been out for
it's been out for a year. It came out last year. But I watched it, and anytime you hear something like that, you go into it and you're like, well, it can't be that bad.
Yeah.
It's that bad. It started off okay, and then it just completely takes a nosedive, and it's just awful. So I wouldn't watch the 2019 one at all.
Okay.
The 2006 one, you might have fun with it. I watched the unrated version. I can't speak for the rated 2006, but the unrated is pretty gory. Like, there's a lot of savage kills in it. But yeah, so we got anything?
Yeah, anything else to add? Final
no.
thoughts?
No.
I thought it was.
You liked it?
Yeah, it was. For what it is.
Yeah, I like it.
I think it's worth watching. Like I said, I wish it wasn't as slow, but I think that's more of the nature of the time and stuff like that. But I think it's definitely was worth the time for sure.
Good.
Did any critics on this?
Well, so John Saxon, 10 years after this, would be in another seminal slasher film. He played a cop in Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. And then the director, Bob Clark, went on to do, because he's Canadian, he went on to do Porky's and Porky's 2, big hits.
All right.
He did another holiday movie that you might have heard of, A Christmas Story.
Oh.
Yes, so the same guy that directed Black Christmas directed A Christmas Story. So before Ralphie wanted his Red Ryder BB gun, you had Black Christmas, the guy bumping sorority sisters off.
Before the evil bully attacked Ralphie, we had the slasher trying to kill the sorority girls.
Yep, Bob Clark did both holiday films. He also did the sequel to A Christmas Story, It Runs in the Family, which a lot of people are like, huh, there's a sequel? There is a sequel. It Runs in the Family. It came out in the 90s. 71% fresh Rotten Tomatoes, 75% audience score. I didn't find a Roger Ebert review of it, but I did see that Gene Siskel gave it 1.5. He didn't like it. But, Siskel and Ebert were really, really harsh on horror movies back in the day. Yeah. Like, they hated Friday the 13th and a lot of other stuff. The Hitcher, I talked about The Hitcher on another episode that I'd watched. But they were kind of fuddy-duddies in that respect.
They were get off my yard.
They kind of were. And Leonard Maltin gave it 2.5 stars.
Well, Leonard didn't do much better than they did.
He didn't, but at least it wasn't a bomb.
He gave it a better score than The Mummy.
He did.
Leonard.
He did.
I'm gonna have to have some words with him.
Have a talk with Leonard.
All right. Is that it? All right, guys. Well, that was our review on Black Christmas for this holiday season. We answer viewer questions on our Wednesday episodes. So if you have a question you'd like us to answer on air, shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com, or if you're watching us YouTube, you can leave it below and we'll add it to the bin of viewer emails to answer. We're also on social media at Real Shame on Instagram. And if you're watching us, like, subscribe, tell your friends, do all that kind of social media stuff, because that really does help spread the word of the podcast, and we would really appreciate that. And I didn't ask you what we're going to do next, so why don't you tell us what we're doing next?
I decided to pair this with another Christmas, I guess it could be considered a horror movie. Something like that. There's some kills in it, so yeah, it's a horror movie. Christmas horror movie. And this one, neither one of us had ever seen. Nope. And actually, Vinegar Syndrome just released it in 4K, on a 4K Blu-ray, no less. So I thought, you know what? Now's the perfect time for us to watch what's known as a lot of different titles.
Yeah, I was going to say, which title?
I think we're calling it the original French title, which is like 3615 Code Père Noël.
So it's not Game Over?
It's also known as Game Over, also known as Deadly Games, also known as Dial Code Santa Claus. There's a lot. Take whatever title you want, but that's what we're doing next time.
All right, guys. Well, stay tuned next time as we cross that movie off our list of shame, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye.